So, good morning, everyone. So, in our last class, we studied the various characteristics of the DBMS. So, today we shall look at the further concepts related to a DBMS software. So, database users. So, the users are divided based on what operations they do on the DBMS software. So, that categorization of operations um, makes the user to play certain roles. So they are called as actors. So typically what happens, so in our laboratory environment or in our system, we install the software and work on it. But in large applications and industry, the one who install and maintain the software will be different. The one who design the tables will be different, and the one who insert or delete or update or query the data that is stored on the tables will be different. So the different set of operations will be performed by different set of people, and they all are called as actors. So let us see few actors. So actors on the scene. So actors on the scene means the actors who are visible to everyone. So such actors include the database administrator. So the administrator is a person in a large organization who is responsible for giving access to the database, then coordinating with the entire team, monitoring the usage, acquiring the software and the hardware resources that are required. So the overall efficiency of the working of the software will be maintained by the database administrator. So in short called as admin also. Then another actor is the database designer. So designer is also called as an database architect. So the designer is responsible for defining the content, the structure and the constraints, which means it is nothing but the tables and what are the attributes that we are going to store in the tables and the rules for storing the data inside those tables. So along with that, the functions, transactions that will be occurring in the database. So all those things will be decided by the designer, and designer will work by communicating with the end user as well as the developers by understanding their needs. So another role is the end user. So end user is nothing but the one who will be using the software or any application. So the end user will be using the application for data reports, mm, for extraction of information from the database, or he may change the contents of the database. So end user is the one who performs the insert, delete and update as well as query operations on the database. So another role that can be played is of a system analyst and application programmers. So system analyst will determine uh, the requirements of the end user. So according to that, the development of the database will be done by meeting the requirements of the end user. So the application programmers are the one who will be going to implement the programs, test, debug and documents. So the programmer is the one who will write the programs for the databases. So these are the few actors who are visible on the screen. So There are certain categories of end users. So the categories of end users. So end users can be categorized um, based on several parameters. So first is the casual end user. So casual end user is the one who occasionally uses the database. So depending on the application. And the second category is the naive or parametric end user. So the large section of end user population falls under this particular category. So here the parametric end user, they will be using the predefined functions in the form of a canned transactions again as the database. So canned transactions are nothing but the predefined functionalities are the reports, whatever is generated again as the data that is present in the database. So already what data needs to be extracted, that particular function will be present, and the parametric end user will be using only those set of functions. So an example would be the a clerk present in the bank or and a reservation desk, whose task is to just to uh, check the data and inform the people. So the entire operation they will be performing is predefined. So that is the second category of end users. The next is the sophisticated end user. So these include the business analysts, scientists, engineers, are the one who are thoroughly familiar with the capabilities of the software. They will use certain tools along with the software packages. These are the additional packages that are being used to work with the database to generate the high-end reports or the analytics. Another category include the standalone end users. So standalone end users is the one who maintain the personal database. So where a single person uh, will be so these are the personal database that they are going to maintain. So a simple example would be a tax programmer who just maintain his own database for his internal workings. So these are the various categories of database users who are the end users. So the other users is the workers behind the scene. So the so far whatever we have seen is the workers on the screen. So workers behind the scene, which means these are the users who will not come into the limelight. So they include the DBMS system designers and implementers. Uh, These are the one who create the database software itself. Tool developers, then operators and maintenance personnel. So operators and maintenance personnel are the one who will be maintaining the entire DBMS software along with its hardware storage. So this is about the database users. So next we shall see what are the advantages of using the database approach. So the first and the foremost advantage the database approach provides is the controlling redundancy in data storage and in development efforts. So here redundancy means storing the same data again and again or at multiple places. So in our previous classes, we studied the example of maybe 4 or 5 tables. So if you observe there, we are storing the information of a student and the department in a separate table, and the relationship between the student and department is stored in another table. So in each department, we had the attributes, that is the short form of the department, the entire expansion of the department. So if we take that example, for each student, we will be storing the department information. So instead of storing the full name of the department, we will just store a short form. So a short form that is unique. For each student, that short form is used. But if the same department name is used everywhere, for each student, maybe if we consider a particular section, 70 times the name and the other details of the department will be repeated again and again. So that repetition of data is called as a redundancy. So in order to avoid redundancy, what we can do is we can divide a single table into multiple core tables. So we also saw an example with what happens if we store entire thing in a single table. So if you maintain everything in a single table, those information of about the department will be stored more than 70 times for one section. So that causes redundancy. So if we use the database approach, then we can avoid such repetition of data, and it also um, reduces the efforts in development and maintenance. So if we use a DBMS packages, then we can create the tables and use it for storage purposes. Otherwise, what happens? So we have to write our own programs to store the data. The second advantage of using the database will be it restricts the unauthorized access to data. So the database software packages provides a login to each users so that there will be no unauthorized access. Provides persistent storage for program objects. So here persistent storage means the permanent storage. So whenever we write a program, so you might have written a lot of programs in your data structures lab or C programming lab. So how we will store the data in those programs? So we will declare the variables. Maybe if we consider an example of a addition program, we will declare two variables. So initialize their value or just read the value from the user, maybe 5 and 10. And then we will add them and print the result. The program will terminate. But the next time when we run the program, does the data we entered, that is 5 and 10, will be present? No, the data will not be present, which means the data which we stored in the variables is destroyed when the program terminates. But in real world applications, we need the data to be present even when the program terminates. For example, let us consider we are storing all the students' data in a program. So what we will do, we will declare a class called as student, and we will store all the information that is required um, for a student in a member variable. So we'll create 70 objects, so we'll store the values. But once the program terminates, all the data that is stored in the variables is lost. So how to make that particular data to be present even after we terminate the program? So that is where the database comes into picture, because the storage of data in a database is a persistent one. Persistent means it is stored permanently on the hard drive. Even if there is a power failure or a power off, the data will remain. So just like how we store the files in our system. So another advantage of using the database approach is the providing storage structures for efficient query processing. So query processing we shall see later. So it is uh, we can extract whatever information that is required for us in an efficient manner. So there are certain commands, so database commands, so using which we can get the data. And once the data is extracted from the database, there will be a certain set of predefined data structures provided in each DBMS package where we can directly store the data. So no need to uh, process it once again. So all the languages provide the uh, libraries where we can directly store the data that is extracted from the database. So other advantages include, so the DBMS software provides the backup and recovery services. So whenever the data is to be modified or anything, the user can take the backup. Once the maintenance is over, so the data can be recovered. So recovered and stored back. Then there will be multiple interfaces to different class of users. So we just saw the different database users. So for each one of them, there will be different interface for database admin, designers, application programmers, and all the workers behind the scene. So each one of them will have their own interfaces. Then representing complex relationships among the data. So the relationships, the one which we saw in our examples is a student enrolling to a subject. So that is a one relationship. So those kind of relationships can be established by creating the associated tables properly. So wherein in a normal programming language scenario, so it might be difficult to establish the relationship. So later on we'll study further how the relationship can be established among the tables. Then enforcing integrity constraints on the database. So integrity constraint is nothing but it is a rule that uniquely identifies an object or an entity in the database. For example, if we have 100 students in the database, so the one attribute that is unique by its nature can be used to identify a student. So in our case, USN. So USN of a student uh, is unique, and based on that, we can identify all the, any student. So such uniqueness rule on an attribute is called as an integrity constraint. So those kind of rules can also be specified in the DBMS. Then it permits interfacing and actions using the rules. So several other rules can be enforced on a database. So they are called as the assertions and triggers. So using which additional rules can be mentioned. So we shall also study those during this particular course. So these are the basic advantages of following a database approach in our application. So the additional implications of using the DBMS include the potential enforcing of standards. So that is for any application which is very large. So we can enforce certain programming rules such as for each data it will be a named item. So the format in which we display the data, or how we generate the reports, or the description of the data can be stored. So all those things can enforce the programming standards. So that is the an additional implication of using the DBMS, and it reduces the development time. So the incremental time to add each new application is reduced. So the entire storage and part and making the data persistent will be taken care by the database management software. So it reduces the burden on the programmer to insert, delete and update, or even querying the data. And the application programmer can concentrate on the logic of the program instead of storing and retrieving the data. So that is where the development time of the application is greatly reduced. So the other implication include flexibility to change the data structure. So let us imagine we have written a program using linked lists. Now, after certain duration of time, we want to change that linked list into object-oriented programming by creating the respective classes. So if we had written a program for storing the data, then that particular part should also be changed. But here, if we use database for the storage purpose, then we need not change anything on the database side, that is the storage part, and the programmer can only change the data structures that are used in his or her programs, or even sometimes we can change the language itself, but database will remain the same. So availability of up-to-date information. So the DBMS software can be accessed over the internet, and hence it will always be available for any of the online transactions or e-commerce portals, so which are used predominantly over the internet. Then economies of scaling. So by consolidating the data and the application so across the department, so it is useful in overlapping the resources and storing the data at multiple places within an organization can be completely avoided. So what happens is if we store the same information at many places, so what happens is if we want to change that data, we will change at one place, but that may not reflect in all other places. So if there are 5 places where we have stored the information, if I want to change anything, I have to change at all the 5 places. Otherwise, there will be inconsistency among the data. So one data will be updated. So the remaining 4 will remain outdated. So such synchronization of data can be avoided so that all the data which we use will be up to date. So that can be done. So with the help of a database where we'll remove the redundant storage of informations. So that makes the overlapping of resources can be avoided. So next we shall see the brief history of database applications and how databases evolved over a period of time. So earlier in late 60s, so the database means it is all about the persistent storage, which means making the storage of data permanent. Whatever variables we have declared in the program, that has to remain even when there is a power off or when the program terminates. So for this in mid 60s, so the model that is being used is the hierarchical and network model. So where the data is stored in a hierarchy. So just like a tree or like a networked nodes where each one is linked to each other. So a bulk of worldwide database processing, so it still happens using these models, but nowadays it is being changed, and the fundamentals of building a database may still remain the same. So in networked models, so data is stored as a network where the links will be present between the data. So later, the relational model became a standard. So relational model means so storing the data in a table format. So that is the relational model. So each data is called as an entity over here. So data is stored as an entity. So this model was originally built in 1970 at IBM. Okay. So later on, the products or the software based on this relational model, they got commercialized and they really were released in 1980s. So then after 1980s, then came the applications which uses the object-oriented programming. So in object-oriented programming, all the informations related to an entity can be grouped together. So in our programming language terminology, we call it as a class. So in Java, we can create a class, or C++ or C Sharp, we create a class. So in this, and then finally what happens before terminating the program, we can store all the objects. So using certain APIs, so we can make it as a persistence. But that in itself is a complex issue. For example, if we have a CAD application, which means we have a object and we need to store the information about all the objects. So storing those kind of data in object oriented application is highly challenging, and these object oriented database systems or data modeling uh, didn't get succeeded. So then we have the data on web and e-commerce application. So the data on a web page may be stored in a hypertext markup language HTML format by linking one page to another page. Then came up a new standard, that is the extensible markup language. So this is again a text file format where the data is stored using the tags. So HTML and XML, they are related. So in fact, HTML is derived from XML. So in XML, the data is stored in a normal text format, but there will be a markings on the text. So those markings, we call it as a tag. So each data is encapsulated inside a tag. So they become one set of standard in e-commerce application. So one such example, let me write over here. Yeah. So a simple student in an XML would look like this. So student. So this is a student object. Okay. So within this, we can write the other attributes like USN, whatever. Okay. So we will close the USN part like this. So now what happened? So we have stored the student and the USN. So along with this USN, uh, we can store the other informations also about a student, maybe name, like this. So again, if you look at this, this is a text format, but we have marked the text. So that marking, we call it as a tag. So this USN is one tag, then closing of USN is the marking. So opening tag will have a closing tag. So each student will store like this. And finally, it is going to store as a text file, but with an extension .xml. So this is one way of storing the data. So it is highly used in web applications and e-commerce applications. So even many configuration files in our smartphones are stored in the XML format itself. Okay. So next is the extending the database capabilities. So with all this, then evolve the database softwares which we have today. They came up with new capabilities. So they include the applications for scientific applications. So we know how complex the scientific application is, and it all depends on the mathematics, complex mathematics, their evaluations, maybe how the computation takes place in missile systems or satellite systems. So those things. Secondly, the storage of images and image, audio, and video. So in all the social media sites, they are dominated by the multimedia data. So how these data can be stored inside a database. Then data mining. So data mining is nothing but the uh, finding the patterns within the data that is stored in the database. So one such example, maybe you might have seen while watching the sports. They will show the same scenario when it had occurred. So how many times this particular team has won when this particular scenario has occurred, or to be specific, this particular bowler, if he has taken 3 wickets and scored 20 runs, then this particular team has won 75% of their matches. So those kind of statistics, so they all come under data mining, where a hidden patterns uh, will be recognized from the underlying data. So those are the new additional functionalities that are being added to the database systems. Then spatial data management. So how we can store the geography. So that becomes the spatial data. Time series and historical data. So the data that is generated associated with the time is the time series data. If One example for these time series and historical data include the stock market data. So where at each microsecond, the price of a stock will vary. So storing such information along with the time, so it is also possible in the database softwares. So these are the capabilities of the database. So all these capabilities, so they give a new direction for research and development in building the database systems. So the next we shall see when not to use the database. So when the database is not required. So when the cost of the application is too high, and yes, DBMS uh, in very large applications it is not free, so some investment is required in the purchasing of the software and additional hardware that is required to install the software, and there is a overhead of providing the security, recovery, concurrency control and integrity functions in the database. So all those things is a overhead as far as cost is concerned. So when DBMS is not required, when the application is very simple, well defined, and that much of the data that is present is not expected to change. So maybe a calculator application, we doesn't need the database, right? Then and there itself it will show the result and then vanishes off. If there is a stringent real-time requirements that may not be met because of the overhead. So real time, if it is not possible to store and extract the data, so then the DBMS is not necessary. When there are no multiple users, again the database is not required. So if the database system is not able to handle the complexity of the data, so if the data that we are handling is highly complex and we cannot represent that particular data in the database tables, then so it is not required. Then any other special operations if we are performing on the data that is not supported by the DBMS. So again, we will get to know what are the operations that are supported in the database in our later classes. Okay, so we shall stop over here and discuss the data models in our next class.